Boom, baby. Let's do it.
Get it on.
Man, Baker Mayfield. Oh, wrong show. Seriously, man, how about that? Gotta give a shout out to the Oklahoma kid who only wants to be an underdog.
You gotta love it, man. Especially the fact is that if it's any other position in football, you would think, okay, it makes sense that they could do something special because you don't have to think about it much. But I mean, he got thrown into the fire and he came out on top. So good for him on that. I mean, did he even get a full day of practice? I don't think he got a full day of practice. So crazy shit going on in Oklahoma. Or
yeah,
Oklahoma
man.
alum.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And, it kind of brings up something about some people. They need to be counted out. They need to be, put in that walk-on situation before he became the number one pick, right? Sometimes that's how you got to go. I think in the end, even though like people have to go through different trials and stuff, like coming out on top in the end is what it's all about. And I know his career is not over. He was the first pick in the draft, I think, in 2017. I mean, like, it's not over. So, yeah, great job for Baker. Great day for OU fans to, get to see him do something special like that. And that interview after the game was pretty special. But in the end, bro, we're here to talk about the Thunder, like we always do. We're pumped up. We've had a hell of a season, and we think this is a really good time to take a step back and assess specifically where the sophomores are this year, second-year players. Now, we just came off of a game with the Grizzlies, and, even though it wasn't our best game of the season by any means, there are some good things we want to mention as we go. We're not going to spend a ton of time starting out just talking about that game, mostly just because the fourth quarter, got out of hand. So in the end, the game wasn't, as close as it was, appeared to be over the first three quarters. So we'll come back to that throughout, but mostly we want to take a bigger picture look at what is happening with these sophomores. You got me pumped up when you brought this up. So I'm going to just go ahead and yield it to you. You can tell me what you're thinking. I've got some things I want to mention, but only in conjunction with what you say.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that, when we're talking about these sophomores, we're going to really focus right now and most of this podcast on one particular sophomore, and that's really who we consider being a fundamental piece, a foundation block to this team for the future, and that's Josh Giddey. So we're obviously going to be talking about Josh Giddey for a significant amount of time. We got Trey Mann in there, and we got JRE. Throw JRE in there. Aaron Wiggins has gotten 18 games and averaging 19 minutes in those games. So we will bring him up as well. Maybe not as much as the three other guys. But first of all, let's go ahead and dip in real quickly and talk about games played in minutes, because I think this is a direct correlation to exactly which players are going to be utilized a lot, especially coming towards the end of the season. Shea obviously leads the team in minutes. He's averaging 35.6. Dort is second at 30.6. Josh Giddey is third at 30.3. All right. You keep going down this list right here. Jalen Williams is fourth with 25.5, which kind of surprised me. Really 26 minutes a game, or, thereabouts. But I knew he's getting a lot of minutes, but that 25, 26 minutes, that to me, that has to be right up there at the top of the rookies this season. So that's a really good number for Jalen Williams. As the time goes on, I'm sure he's going to get that up to averaging out to 27, meaning that I think he could do 30 minutes a game in the back half of the season. Trey Mann, another sophomore we're going to talk about, but he's averaging 22 minutes a game. All these guys are at 21 or 22 games, minus Dort and Shea. Dort's at 24 games played, and Shea's at 23 games. Everybody else is at 21 or 22. It shows you where the sophomores are at. This is not a mistake. I think it's really kind of one of those things that coach likes to do, is he likes to bring on the sophomores and the rookies slow. They won't play as many games or as many minutes, allowing them to catch their legs a little bit quicker. So, which is great to see. You got JRE and Poku. They're right there at the same minutes at 22 minutes a game. And, like I said, Aaron Wiggins at 19. So seeing that and seeing the minutes, which to me, like I said, it's a big part of it. And understanding that we got Josh Giddey, who's third in the on the team in minutes. You got Trey Mann, who's fifth, right? JRE, who's sixth, and Aaron Wiggins, who's down there. So I look at this and I get encouraged because that these guys are being utilized a lot. I mean, they're getting a ton of minutes out there, and everything is not always amazing to see with Trey Mann. Everything is not always amazing to see with Josh Giddey or JRE or Aaron Wiggins. But what's happening is the maturity and the way these guys are playing is getting more consistent, especially starting with Josh, man. I watch the way he plays, and I know there's been a lot of people in the Oklahoma City Thunder community and podcasts that have been talking a lot of shit about Josh. And I hate it because Josh to me is one of those guys that as you're watching him,
we call them dingleberries.
Yeah, and it's horrible. Barry always does is act like what he's doing is, bringing up the news and what's happening. Trying to bring up stuff that he saw as a reporter, as a writer, or whatever. And it's frustrating because he picks subjects that he knows frustrates players. Why? Because he wants to get a rise out of them. That's fine. That you could do that as a reporter, and eventually, he'll get a story. Right. He'll get a story. He'll be like, "Oh, look it, I got a story because of it." But I look at it, and also he's going to make a lot of enemies. So there's a lot of people that are just saying Josh Giddey isn't one of those players that should be talked about in a positive way. But man, look at 30 minutes. 14.6 points a game, which is second in on the team. Offensive rebounds, he's averaging 1.7, which is second on the team only to JRE, which is another sophomore who's averaging 2 offensive rebounds a game. JRE is number 1 on rebounds per game on this team, and the closest person next to him is averaging 5.2, and that's JRE, and Josh Giddey is averaging 7.7. That's huge. That's a huge number, 7.7 as a sophomore and as somebody that's playing guard position. His assist is second on the team. He's averaging 5.4, only to Shea at 6.0. Shea is obviously killing it in steals. Josh is still learning. He's 0.6 a game, which is about what the league average is, someplace around there. Block shots, all right, he's getting there half a game. Really, the turnover to assist rates is what I begin excited about because he has the same turnover to assist rates as Shea does at 1.7, 1.8. I look at that as a huge stat because here you have somebody that Shea has been in the league for a long time and is the ball's in his hands at all times almost ever since he's been in the league. And you look at his turnover to assist to turnover rate and you're like, holy cow, that's what we want to see. That's what we want to see with a point guard, right? Much less somebody that's playing off the ball like he is. And it just shows you how well he knows the game. So getting back to it and understanding what Josh can do, I see there's a glimmer of hope that at the second half of the season that he could put things together and be known as one of the better sophomores in the league. To me, he's already proven that he should be in the conversation, but because people are still not truly understanding what Josh Giddey's game is or what it looks like and not understanding the whole footy aspect to Josh's game, they're not really putting things together and realizing what Josh's true potential is. So as we're breaking down Josh in this episode, you guys got to listen to how to watch Josh's game.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, obviously we have a lot to say about Josh. But when you talk about the other sophomores, I think it's really hard to say any one thing particular about them other than they work extremely hard at their position, at defending, and at finding ways to contribute. Now, that can adjust in how that will work at different times. For a player like Aaron Wiggins, he might not get opportunities. But I think while people look at that and say, oh, he's not in the long-term plan because he's not playing a lot, I look at it more like it's up to Presti, not Coach Daignault, to make an opportunity for Aaron Wiggins. And at this moment, if it really is about clearing a path for him to play it's best that he gets opportunities in short spurts. He can improve, and he's shown the ability to defend at a high level, to knock down the three when he needs to, and he really is a really good slasher to the basket. He gets open, he knows when to cut, and when he does, I mean, there's that dunk he had that was one of the best dunks I've ever seen. I mean, his head was right at the rim. It felt like, is that Aaron Wiggins? I think it was like 6 or 7 games ago, and then, you know, he doesn't play for a few games and stuff, and that's fine. That's part of development. 82 games is a lot for a young player. So, you know, then he's back in the rotation. So I think this is a part of the plan. I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's exactly where you'd want to be if you're in his shoes, being one of the last players in the draft. And then JRE, similar, like he was one of the last, he was a second round player, but the Oklahoma City Thunder treated him as a first round player. So you could either say he's one of the first second round players or one of the last first round players of the draft. We thought he was a first round player, so we traded 2 second round picks to get him right at the beginning of the second round. But that's neither here nor there. In the end, what he does for the team right now is you mentioned rebounding, but he can knock down that three. He runs the court and he defends very well. We're undersized most of the time when he's out there, but he does more than enough. And he plays every bit you'd ever want from a player at his stage of development. We look at him as a first-round pick still. There's no doubt about that. We also look at him like
absolutely
he needs a little bit longer because a lottery pick, if he was a lottery pick, it would be because he was more polished, right? So that polish comes with time. He's coming along. Last year we noticed his ability to connect everybody around him, whether it was where he started the season playing at the high post a lot of time and swinging the ball, or like the second half of the season when they put him more on the wing, and then he was shooting the three and or driving when when the opportunity was there. So all of those things, and then you come back to Trey Mann. Trey Mann, he's someone you could say was right at the end of the lottery, right? He had an opportunity to be, I think, a high lottery player. There were some questions about his overall athleticism and not necessarily his shot making ability, but I would say his lift in his shot and his ability to get that shot off at the NBA level. So he's come along a long way too, because now when I think about Trey Mann, I think of a defensive stopper. Now, we want to think about that guy who can knock down the step back three from the logo. Of course we do. But in the end, this goes back, and everybody should always appreciate, what Doc Rivers was able to get from Tony Allen and players like that. Because in the end, if you can learn how to defend at a high level, you're going to play. Now, if you have offensive talent on top of that, then you'll be fine. So the biggest impact I've seen Trey Mann make in the last 5 games he's played has been on the defensive end. So don't worry about the offense. We always want to look at the shot chart, the stat line, and that's lazy. Like, you got to watch what he's doing out there. Is he helping the team win? Because if he is, he's going to play, and then guess what? He's going to go ahead and start knocking down shots. And we know from what we saw last year that he could be the reason that we win some games because of his shot-making ability. So we're not worried about that. Like, we definitely think he's on the right trajectory. All right, so I covered the other guys. Now let's talk Josh, all right? The one thing I want to look at for Josh is his three-point shot, because while everybody knows that that's what he needs to improve, he even knew it, right? That can kind of become a difficult thing when everybody's focusing on it. So I want to talk about the last 7 games of his shooting, right? The last 3 games, he shot 50%. He shot 14 threes, 7 of 14 from behind the arc. That's a lot of threes over 3 games for Josh, right? That's unusual for him. The previous 4 games, he shot 0 for 1 each game. All right, so there's a clear uptick in his three-point shooting, not just percentage, right? If you go 0 for 1 for 4 games in a row, and the next game you come out and you shoot 7, what I think is happening is the coaching staff is getting in his ear. Now, what do you think they're saying? Go ahead.
Well, I think with Josh, I think it's simple. Don't force.
Don't force, but don't turn down an open shot.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing with Josh. What you're seeing with Josh is that it's It's this effortless play. It's every shot that he's taking. You know, when
But
you're
here's the
watching
thing,
this
bro.
player struggle.
Here's what I want to get back to. All right, I want to hear what you're saying, but he's averaging over the last 3 games nearly 5 3-pointers a game. That's after going 4 games in a row of shooting just 1. Like 5 3-pointers a game is something that, to me, it says coach is saying shoot the fucking ball. Like, you know, you've had those players, dude, that you were coaching, that you were like, the number one thing you can do to sit down next to me is turn down an open shot. Like, we've all had those players that was like, look, your job is not to shoot that shot.
Sure.
Right? You're not shooting it in practice, so don't just go out there and jack it up. But the opposite of that is the player who, like, hey, man, you're too good to turn that down that open shot, right? I feel like that's what coach is saying. I think coach is saying, I don't care if you have to shoot 7 fucking threes a game. That's what you got to do until they defend you. Make them go out and guard you. And look, the last game we didn't win, but, you know, 5 out of 11, the other 2 games that we won, that's significant to me. I think we have to look at it and say development is taking place right in front of our eyes. And you can look at his season splits and be like, okay, his 3-point shooting percentage went from 26 to 30% this year. That's not, I mean, it is significant, but it's not enough to be like, okay, he's a good shooter yet. But if you look at the last 3 games, say he's shooting 50% over 14 threes, what's going to happen coming up Saturday? My guess is you can expect to see about 5 threes. Now, that he might go 0 for 5, okay? And people will be pissed. But you know who won't be pissed if he goes for 0 for 5? Coach. Coach won't be pissed because if he's shooting that many shots, it's actually good for the offense. So don't listen to the people who are out there saying, you know, we need only certain players shooting certain shots. We didn't have Dort in our last game. And man, it was apparent in that fourth quarter, we were lacking aggression. We were missing Dort offensively, not just defensively, but we were really missing his offense in the last game. And just go back and look, it was like, who's going to go and attack the basket with a reckless abandon? And sometimes that gets you in trouble, right? But if you break it down, get under control and kick the ball, there's always opportunities for your teammates when you do that. And that's something Dort's improved on a lot this year. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. But he has improved a lot. He's done an amazing job in those improvements. And I'm looking at, you know, on the other side of what Josh Giddey's done from last year to this year. And, you know, he's averaging 14.6 points a game. That's up 2 points from last year. You know, and I want to say this too, is that, you know how everybody's geeking out about J-Dub averaging 10 points a game right now? So much like Shea, right? Well, Josh Giddey averaged 12.5 his rookie campaign. You know, like,
yeah.
I see this ability that Josh has to score, and again, we're talking about it effortlessly. You don't see Josh missing 3 or 4 buckets and it being like so obvious. The way he misses, right? The way he follows through, the way he does all these things properly, even if it misses, he's still right there to get a rebound, or he's still right there to be able to get a tip from somebody else. Like, he's in the play still, so you don't notice his misses as much as other people when they shoot and then they don't get back on defense or whatever. You know, like Josh, he shoots and he does what it is, you know, he needs to do in order to be able to stay in that play. I love that. I look at the way he's, you know, averaging more fouls a game this season. I like that. It shows you the physicality that he's willing to put his body on the line. You know, he's out there averaging a little bit less assists a game, and I'm okay with that because he's playing a different position. He's not playing that ball, you know, in his hand position. Listen, he's averaging the same amount of rebounds as his rookie year. Offensive boards, same as his rookie year. You can go, his free throws is up 2.5%. That's big because, again, anytime that you can add 2.5% to your free throw in the offseason, it's a big year. And getting that up, because eventually it will click and then it'll get up to the 90% or 85% is what you want to see for somebody that's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And his free throws average has stayed the same, which again, it's good to see because even though he's attacking the hole from a different aspect, he's still getting to that free throw line the way he needs to. His 3-point shot, Mark talked about that. He is averaging less 3-pointers a game right now than he did last year. You know, through the course of the 22 games that he's played. but that 30.4%, that is huge, man. That's up a whole 4%. I understand that you said that's not necessarily what you want to see, but you look at over a career, and if you say Josh Giddey by his 4th year could be averaging 40 plus percent, that's what you want to see. That's the progression that you want to see. It's not going to be overnight and boom, a player shooting 40%. It's the progression. We want to see that. And then last thing I want to talk about real quickly, then I'll throw it right back to you, Mark, is his field goal percentage. This is the one thing that I look at and I get excited about because it's almost gone up 10% from last year. That's the type of stat that you need to see and the progression that you need to see from a rookie to a sophomore. And the fact is that Josh is attacking the hole better. He's taking that jump shot. He's taking that fadeaway. He's taking those shots with greater accuracy. And that's going to pay off. And that's why you're looking at his stats and saying he's averaging almost 15 points a game. And what does that mean? Okay, well, if you look back in the history of the game to guys that are in essence similar to Josh, right? Not necessarily like Josh, but are similar to Josh that start off the rookie year at 14.5 points per game. Second sophomore year, looking at 15 points a game, right? And then it's typically that third year you find out what type of player they are. It's that third year to know if they're going to be able to take that jump to 20 points a game or not. Listen, Josh is showing everything he is and showing everything he can do. And I keep on going back to this and saying, this is the moment that we all have to recognize and say that there's more chance that Josh is going to be the second player on this team to average 20 points a game. Because, I mean, he's taking less shots than Dort. You know, he's averaging more points than Dort. And as that time is going, it's going to start shifting over to more Josh and more J-Dub and more, Shea. Like, these guys are going to start taking more and more shots. And that's what we want to see because, listen, Dort is at his best if he's averaging 14 to 16 points a game. That's where we want to see his sweet spot is because, listen, he can do that off of 8 shots, 10 shots a game. We need to disperse as much shots to Josh and as much shots to J-Dub and as much shots to Shea because J-Dub's next year is going to have a big year. But Josh is still a year ahead of J-Dub, and that's why I look at it and say that I think Josh is going to be that next player that takes it up to that 20 points a game player on this team. And listen, man, if he can pull that off the way that he makes that impact on the court, it's going to be bigger. The fact is he's leading the team in rebounds. He's right up there in assists. He's right up there in offensive rebounds, second on offensive rebounds. He's so active everywhere. It's truly impressive.
Yeah, man, for sure. I think there's a lot of, elements to that when you're talking about Dort specifically, as far as how many shots he gets in a game, like that might go down over time, but I think that will become mostly because he becomes proficient at getting to the free throw line. I don't think we're going to take away, okay, we don't want you to be aggressive, right? That aggression should stay, but more of his possessions should end up, from that position. Now, you mentioned something else I want to evaluate. You said the third year is so important, right? We don't want to overreact. And I was thinking, I just pulled a name out of my head, right? Who can we look at their career from a points perspective and say, an example? So I said Paul George, right? Everybody, Thunder, familiar with him. Let's look at the first 3 years of his career and say, what is it, what's the common path for a star? Maybe that's not common, right? But let's just say LeBron's not common. Okay, let's go with that. All right, so Paul George, the first year, 2010, 7.8 points per game. Second year, 12.1. Third year, 17.4. Okay, so you can see, it really is about that third year. And I would say, obviously...
5-point jump, man.
Right. Obviously, he continued. His fourth year is 21 points a game. His fifth year was that massive injury, I believe, is how that ended up going. He goes on to average 23 over the next couple of years. But my point is, just to reiterate your point, is that if you're looking at somebody at their rookie year and being 7 points per game, that's who he is, then you miss out on Paul George. You miss out on a lot of players who come into a man's league and tend to be lanky, skinny, need development, and go on to become great players. Not everybody, is Kevin Durant, where they come in, they win Rookie of the Year, and they immediately start leading the league in scoring or right at the top of it. A lot of them take different routes, and we have to be patient for those routes. And in particular, a player like J-Dub, like Shea, has shown his own path that's similar to what we're saying about Paul George here, but also, Giddey, Dort, and go down the list. I mean, look, just because somebody's points go down does not mean they regressed. There seems to be a lot of concern in the Thunder fan base about regression. And I think that stems from a lot of ignorance. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, and I'm sure that, ignorance is one of those words it's hard not to be derogatory, but like, I'm not saying regression doesn't take place, but I've never seen regression simply take place without an organization being the type that, caters toward regression. I guess there could be an argument that Serge Ibaka was no longer as good of a defender as his career with the Thunder and outside went on. So I'm not saying it never happens, right? But yeah. I'm simply saying, like, we're not watching literal regression. What we're watching is players pop up on the scouting report. Trey Mann last year, nobody knew who the fuck he was. This year, you can tell that his step back is something that they're always looking to take away. They would rather give up a drive to Trey than a step back. You can tell. They're closing out so quickly on it. Now, when that happens, that's up to him. Does he make them pay for doing that to the point where they have to switch their approach? He's going to have to figure that out. But that's not regression. That's just NBA teams defending you with the best athletes in the world in a way that takes away your first and sometimes second and third options. That's it.
Yeah, and with Dort, with Trey Mann, with Josh Giddey, J-Dub, all these guys are playing second fiddle to Shea. Mm-hmm. Not every game are these guys going to consistently go out there and put big numbers up. Shea's going to go out there. You're going to see Josh put up some consistent numbers, and you're going to see Dort this season put up some consistent numbers. You're going to see a sprinkle of Trey Mann dust, right? Right? Sprinkle that shit out there once in a while, and he'll look really, really good. But like the reality is, you got right now Dort averaging 14.2. That's 3 points less than he averaged last year. Now he has a different load on his back,
and we both, when we went into this, we anticipated this. We said we felt like there was as good a chance that he could move his points forward or backwards. I was anticipating backwards because there's certain things that go on, right? Like Shea's immersion, other people need shots. But here's the thing about Dort. Even though his points have gone backwards, he's increased his aggression. So
yeah, but let's talk about the other things that he's gotten better at. Mm-hmm. All right? He's averaging 1.2 steals a game, which is more than any other time in his career, by 0.3, which is a big thing. He's averaging more blocks right now a game. He's averaging more assists, 2.3, which is up a half of an assist, 0.6 assist from any other season that he's played. His rebounds is the highest he's ever been, both on the defense and the offense. His offensive rebound is at 1.6 this year. That's a whole offensive rebound more than he's ever had in his career. Free throws, he is averaging 3.3, which is, not exactly where I wanted him to be at. He needs to be averaging a solid 4 because that means he's consistently getting to that free throw line every game. But that will come up with the more aggression that he has. His 3-point shot right now is at 32%, which is not so hot, right, comparatively to his career. But I'm not worried about it because he's only taking 5.3, which is the second lowest in his career. And it's because he's still getting used to that shot. And Mark's talked about it. He's averaging 5 3-pointers in the last few games. And that 3-pointer looks so filthy right now. So I'm not worried about that 32%. That's going to come up. That's going to be around 35 to 37 by the end of the year. It's going to look good. I understand people are going to say that doesn't mean he should be shooting 5 3-pointers a game. Yes, it does, because next year is going to be his money year in 3-point range. And, of course, his field goal range, it's right on with his career average. It's at that 40.5, and he's averaging 12.3, which is lower than he did last year by 2 shots a game, almost 3. I'm not worried about it, man. I really am not worried about this because it's a different type of season. We're not expecting him to take the shots. We're not expecting him to be second fiddle right now. In most games, he's third or fourth fiddle. You know, he's the third or fourth guy in the option that we go to in that third or fourth, option. On the play that breaks down, there's Dort, okay? But that's okay because when you have people like Shea and you have people like Josh and you have people like J-Dub out there playing great games, you got to give him the ball. So with what we've seen with Dort this year, I know there's been a lot of people that have been frustrated with him, you know, and this is year 4, and I knew we were going to talk about sophomores this year, but I want to stand up for those guys that people are being harsh with all over the media, social media, all over podcasts, and that's Dort and Josh. And it's frustrating to me because Dort and Josh are the 2 guys that I feel like that are going to be the heartbeat of this team for the future. And I'm looking at it, I'm looking both of their stats, and I'm saying, look at the improvements. Yes, some improvements aren't the improvements that you want to see, but across the board, you're seeing these guys, they're turning over the ball less. They're getting more steals. They're picking up more assists. They're getting more rebounds. And it's like, okay, this is what they need to be improving on, right? You know, who cares if Dort's dropped down 3 points a game or Josh is only having a 2-point game increase from this last season? The point is that you're seeing the increase, and that's what's so important.
Absolutely, man. That's what it's about. We want to see incremental improvement, and sometimes you're going to see it in different places. And yeah, it's easy to like fixate on one particular thing because in the end, you win or lose games based on points scored. So, you know, that's what it's easiest to focus on. But like competitiveness, desire, making the right play at the right time, you know, that doesn't really come down to a singular stat. So you have to watch the games. You have to figure out who's doing the most to help the team win and figure out why coach is having people play. And I'm still waiting. Like, we haven't had any major injuries yet. We've had people sit out some games, but, you know, as the season goes along, there are going to be people who sit out for multiple weeks. And that's when I think you're going to start really seeing other players kind of emerge. Ousmane Dieng, Aaron Wiggins, like, these guys are going to continue to get opportunities they're kind of outside the rotation right now. And when they get into it, it's going to be up to the other people to come back and earn their spot back, because that's the type of play I'm expecting. A lot of times when we have a player go down, you're just like, well, what are we going to do until they come back? But, you know, at this point, I think there's only a couple people that are really, really difficult to replace on the team right now.
You're right. But I was watching G League. Mm-hmm. Can't help myself, right? Mm-hmm. And the game I watched was Ousmane Dieng just fucking went off. I think it was like 25 and 12.
Really?
Yeah. And it's like, yeah. I get it. I get it that people are going to be down and sad when certain players get injured and go down. But you and I both know, man, this team is built by the strength of the roster, aspect 1 through 12. You know, like you can say 14, 15, yeah, you know, or 13 and 14 are important players, but 1 through 12, man, that's your bread and butter right there. Because as you're going, that 1 through 12, it's going to change. Players are going to get injured. Players are going to go down. Players are going to have family issues. Whatever the problem is, these guys are going to have to take time off eventually. And these other guys are going to be able to step in. And you look at somebody like Ousmane Dieng, and I was saying in the beginning of the season when we picked him over J-Dub, because I felt like J-Dub was significantly more ready to play in the NBA than Ousmane Dieng. And I remember you and I were talking about it, and I said, I think Sam Presti said, I'm going to pick Ousmane Dieng first, right? Because he needs more time in the G League. And this is my way of giving him a little bit more, you know? Mm-hmm. Because he needs more time. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but I've always been fascinated with the fact that he did that. Like Sam Presti isn't somebody that's just like, okay, I'm going to pick a number between 1 and 10, you know? Calling them both up. Pick a number between 1 and 10. 4. Nope, you're gone. All right, click. Okay, you got it. All right. Now we're picking Ousmane Dieng first. That's not who he is. He's very methodical. He's very thought process through. And then you see Ousmane Dieng go off in the G League in a game like that with 25 and 12. And it's like, him in 2 years in the NBA, could he be putting those type of numbers up? And it's like, yeah, absolutely, you could be putting those type of numbers up. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, that's why when we talked about it, he traded all of his draft picks for this next year. Sam Presti did. And it's like, why did he do that when he kept our one pick? Well, it's because he has the team set. It's set. All he is doing is adding a piece here and there. And all those people that are like, oh, we're going to trade this player, we're going to trade that player, we're going to trade this player. Only reason we trade a player is if the scenario and the area, the spot that they're playing isn't benefiting them and they've requested to be traded. Mm-hmm. That's it. Everybody else is staying here. We're not going out and searching for, hey, let's try to get a big man or let's try to go get another shooter. Let's try. No, we're sticking with this team. Because if Sam Presti was going to do that, he would have kept those other draft picks for this next year because then he could have traded them. Mm-hmm. But he committed down. He doubled down on Ousmane Dieng. He doubled down on J-Dub, and he said, this is the team of the future. That's that.
That's that.
And it's crazy when all these other Thunder podcasts, they don't get it. They don't understand it. They can't get it through their thick skull that Sam Presti is on such another level than they will ever think. Like, even with us understanding a little bit more in depth of what he's trying to do with this organization, I still feel like sometimes he does something that's like, holy fuck, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, all the time.
And it's like, what?
Right
like
before Isaiah Joe was on the team, I was like, I think the roster's set. There's no more room. Boom. Like, every time, dude, I think I know what's going on. Boom.
Because, like, listen, he could have a plan to trade Bays and somebody else and get some player back that is so good that we're all sitting there being like, what the fuck just happened? Right? Mm-hmm. So I say that he's not looking to trade, but I mean, like, Sam Presti is brilliant. And when it comes down to it, like, there's never been a moment that I've been frustrated with Sam Presti, with his decision making. There's just not. I look at the way he thinks about the game and understands the game and the way he trusts his team around him. And then you see these sophomore guys and rookies guys that are getting it. And then these third-year players, and then Shea signing his contract, and Dort signing his contract, and Kenny Hustle signing his contract, and you're like, oh my fucking word. This is it. This is the moment where everybody else is like, I want your girl. And you're like, can't have it. I put a fucking ring on it.
Boom. Dude.
Everybody else wants a piece of this.
Absolutely, man. And so we got a couple of YouTube comments that we should, give shout outs to.
Hell yeah.
I don't have the names pulled up in front of me.
I do. I got them.
Good. So I also want to unpack a bit of this Bazley talk. It's definitely worth it. So I'll let you go, bro, and then we'll talk that.
All right, man. Woo shocks, bro. Woo shocks. He says, bro, I finally found a fun Thunder podcast. You got a new subscriber and fan. We'll be here every day. Woo shocks. We appreciate you. It's always awesome to hear when somebody listens to our pod, whether it's the first time or second time, and they're like, what is this? I don't know. I'm not used to this, but we like it. James Mattingly, he says, good luck fishing, man. Hope you catch a fatty. Thunder up. Did you catch a fatty?
No, but here, I caught this one the other last time I went fishing. So
here you go, James.
let me tell you real quick about my fishing trip, though.
I love the fact you printed it out, bro.
I printed it out so I could look at it all the time, bro.
Yeah, I know. It's such a beautiful fish.
But all right, so I gotta tell you, I was out there on the Delaware, and I just could not figure out how to do the center pin fishing. So I'm switched to a blue fox, and like a spinner, bro. And no lie, I had a big brown trout chase it all the way. Like, it's very murky water, so and we made eye contact, bro. Like it was big enough, and dude, when it turned, it scared me, and I jumped. Like, it actually made me jump. I scared the fish more than it scared me. Now it didn't bite. I did get another bite, and I didn't land the fish or anything. But like, man, like I've never been scared by a fish before. That fish has that one on me, dude. That's embarrassing to admit, but I think if I hadn't jumped, it went for the bite. I think I would have caught a fish if I hadn't jumped. But
that's fun.
No, I appreciate the love. I appreciate you guys hitting it up. I also want to say
we got some more here too.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
We got some more.
Go ahead, man.
All right, man. So we got another one here from. I'm gonna butcher this. I am the worst reader of all time, so I apologize. Here we go. Ukul Yenrak. All right.
Got it.
He is from Lake Markiri, and that is in South Wales, Australia. Lake Mac is really cool, guys.
Yeah,
when somebody writes me and they tell me like where they're from, right? Immediately I like to look up the town and like what to do, what there is to do around the area, because if you're spending time listening to us, I want to spend time getting to know you if you're going to reach out to us. So definitely take a look at Lake Mac, guys. It is fucking amazing. Then last one is Tobias Rubles. He says, watching this 2 times. Great info. Haven't subscribed. Listen, guys, don't subscribe if you don't want to. We're not asking for subscriptions. We never have. That's not what we want.
We love
want
you if
you guys
you do
to
it,
enjoy a show.
But like honestly, I never have subscribed to any YouTube thing because it annoys me, right? So if you're one of those people, I don't blame you. You don't have to subscribe, dude. We just rock with whoever, man.
And he also goes on. Tobias goes on to say he's watched it since the beginning of the season. But we appreciate everybody that reaches out. We love to just talk, and we love to figure out everything that's going on with people. And you know what? Like I enjoy talking to people. I have some guys I talk to, Chencho, George, I talk to. Any of these guys that I get an opportunity to share my number. Chris, I talk to on a regular basis.
It's real, bro.
I really, it's to me, it's important because like we're not trying to create a podcast here. We're trying to create a family of Thunder fans that really understand the game and that are willing to discuss it across the board. And whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on WhatsApp, whether that's on, here, we are here for you guys. And that's what Mark and I want to be here, is for you guys whenever that is.
Yeah. And I really appreciate everybody taking the time to comment, because like when just podcasting, like, we'd have some people on Twitter, mention the podcast, but the disconnect, it takes days for, reviews to show up on the podcast. But now we have people actually talking about what we're talking about and giving us feedback immediately.
So brilliant.
And we really do appreciate everybody doing that, because it takes way more time to write a comment than it does to subscribe or to like. And we appreciate people doing those things too. But we like a conversation. That's what we want to facilitate. We're not trying to, stand on soapboxes, and we do that sometimes, and that's fine. That's because, our last names are Flats and our grandparents were pastors and, assholes. But we'll move on. Listen, here's the thing. Okay. There's another comment that came on a different pod.
Yeah, you can bring that up. Nice.
No. I'm not going to bring that one up, but we'll bring that one up later.
You got it.
But I was going to mention a different one, but now that you alluded to it, we'll come back to that one. But first, I'm going to stick with the one I was going to do first, and then we'll come back to the one, scathing review, as we'll call it. But first, Wake Up Japan commented on our Don't Treat Josh Giddey Like Russ podcast from a couple weeks ago, and he said, you are hitting the nail clearly on the head. And I appreciate that, because, that's something that we're very passionate about. When we started this podcast, the whole point was we saw people were repeating this pattern that Dingleberry Trammell started. And like the whole idea that like we should count the shots, pick players we don't like in the media, treat them poorly. Like that's not Oklahoma. Oklahomans don't act that way. Like we're nice, good people. He doesn't represent us. He represents himself. That's it. And we've seen other members of the media repeat that process. And we saw the Daily Thunder turn into a cesspool of shit. And we saw We saw it. Yeah, exactly. Down to dunk. They're doing it now. And there's this one player I want to just call everybody's attention to because it's happening in a really loud way. And we should take a moment to notice. And you can even see like Locked On podcast with Rylan over there doing the same thing. But right now, everybody is picking at Darius Bazley and they're trying to trade him.
Fuck
but
those people.
Here's what I want to say. First of all, this stems from, Bazley being in an interview with Andrew Schlecht, a couple of years ago. And Andrew asked him a question at the end of the interview, which was basically after Chris Paul was traded, it was like, do you guys have some sort of group text message thread that you guys tell each other, hey, so-and-so got traded again? It was a very flippant way of asking him, like, does this even matter to you, kind of? Or at least that's how Bazley perceived it, and he didn't appreciate it. He got pissed at Andrew and was like, I don't appreciate that question. And Andrew posted this whole thing on like his, podcast, and that's fine. But ever since he's had it out for Bazley, and anytime if you watch his podcast, anytime anybody mentions Bazley, he goes to a dark place. Bazley humiliated him. Well, Andrew humiliated himself, but like I think the organization had Bazley go back and Darius go back and just like talk to Andrew and kind of apologize because it really like how like people can really get hurt inside.
Yeah.
But Andrew didn't really accept it, right? And he's utilized his influence amongst his people to always pick at Bazley, to really demean him. And now anybody, when they talk about Bazley around Andrew, they immediately mimic his negative mentality, his vibrations, if you will, of just like really a dark thing. And I get it. Bazley's play sometimes can reflect that, and we can add pressure to a player from doing that. But look, we can build up players without tearing other ones down, okay? And one thing that I want to draw to everybody's attention is this. Bazley was a bigger project than a player that people seem to compare him to all the time and not see the irony as they're talking about him going away, okay? That's Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant was picked in the second round, okay? But Bazley was more of a project. There's no doubt about that because he didn't even play in college, right? But when you watch his drives, you're like, oh my gosh, he's dribbling too much. It's out of control. It's wild. That's what everybody said about Grant. Now Grant is out there and he's balling. He's like an all-star, borderline all-star, not a real superstar. And we have fans all the time who are saying like, don't you wish we could have kept him? Don't you wish we could have kept some of these guys that are really being successful at other places? Aren't we tired of being a farm system for the rest of the NBA where players come along, they get to all-star level, they go somewhere else and they're successful? Like, that's what people feel about Jeremy Grant. And maybe the timing wasn't right with Jeremy Grant. That's what it comes down to. His comments on the way out when he went to Denver about getting out of a sinking ship. Fine. I'm happy for him that he's so successful. I cheer for every former Thunder player. But people are already starting to cheer for Bazley as a former Thunder player. You can hear them talk about it. When they mention Bazley, they say stuff like, well, like the whole title of Ryland's podcast, right, is the writing on the wall for Bazley, right? My point is this.
Yeah.
He is a part of the future as long as he's on the team. Okay? So we need to support him. And one of the things that can happen with a player who's unsigned going into this is like he kind of needs to earn his minutes in a different way than he was earlier in his career. Okay? But my belief about Darius Bazley is there's no reason he can't take a similar trajectory to Jeremy Grant. But he needs to understand his role, and part of that is a contract that represents the role properly. Now, he could probably go out and get a bigger contract from a worse team, but we've seen people who do that, and it's really bad for their career. So, yes, part of why he's not playing right now has to do with him being unsigned, I believe, or him being a little bit later in the progress, right, and him not finding that role. But I believe that a lot of the negative mentality with Bazley comes from a similar place that the negative mentality for Russ came with Barry Trammell. There was something that Russ did that hurt Barry. I don't know what it was, but Barry acted very hurt for years. He still acts hurt about it. He still defends his position. He still thinks he was right, and good for him. You know what I mean? If you're going to act that fucking ignorantly and hurt people, at least you should think you're right. Hitler thought he was right. So whatever, like good for Barry. He's convinced he's right. Okay. But my thing is, as fans, we have to decide, are we letting the prejudice of the media impact how we feel about a situation? Do we really dislike Bazley? Or is it that Andrew has been shitting on him for 3 years? I think I'll let you answer that question. But to me, when I look at the organization, I see the players. I see Bazley in a similar situation to Aaron Wiggins, which is he's going to get opportunities. They might come from injuries. And when they do, the fact that he didn't play some of this will mean he treasures that moment even more. He's going to earn another contract. He's going to be a part of our future if Sam Presti decides that, not if Andrew fucking Schleck does.
Yeah, man. And I look at Andrew Schleck and Barry Trammell. You know, like those kids in high school that run around and tell everybody they have a 10-inch cock, right? They're like, yeah, man. Or even in college. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, freaking, wherever. There's always somebody that's running around telling somebody that they have a 10-inch cock, all right? And like, I got the biggest cock ever, right?
They call me tripod and for a reason.
Yeah, Andrew and Barry are like running around telling everybody they got the biggest cock in Oklahoma City area. And it wasn't until we came around that I feel like, they really figured out what a 10-inch cock looked like.
Is that you? You're the 10-inch cock, bro?
No, I'm not saying that you and I are a 10-inch cock, but like
together
we start calling out
cock?
Andrew Schleck for his bullshit. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is calling out Barry Trammell for his bullshit. Bro, it's like they walked in saying they have a 10-inch cock and they have a 5-inch cock and they're supporting, a micro penis of sorts and saying, yeah, look how big I am.
I think you're right. It comes from insecurity and little man syndrome or little man syndrome down there. That'll create the type of insecurity. And I get it. I get the fact that people feel insecure. And the best way to deal with that is to talk down about people. But one thing is, when I saw Barry Trammell go on the Dan Patrick show, and him talk about how, really insult Russ's intelligence and say how he didn't believe Russ even knew who he was. Even though Russ had said, next question, I don't want to talk to you specifically. Barry's like, I don't think he knows who I am. I think he just hates the media. And he really, created this, really bizarre situation when it was obvious. It was very pointed. It was at him. So here we are, and we're watching it repeat itself, and you're like, okay, that's fine.
So why don't we start it? Barry Trammell can go fuck himself. He can leave Oklahoma, and we'll start saying it over and over again, and we'll start preaching it, because the reality is that this shouldn't be happening anymore. This is done.
Here's the thing. There's nothing we can do about it. Okay. There's nothing anybody can do about it. He went at it with an MVP in the smallest market in the NBA, bro. He went right at it with him, and he didn't get fired. Why? Well, it's because he works at the Oklahoman. And there's really nothing that anybody can do about it, bro. We've talked about this for a while. A lot of people have complained. I saw somebody post another one of those, videos of all the Barry Trammell Russ interactions, and then somebody posted underneath that an email interaction they had with Barry where they're like, Barry, if you're really sincere, right, then you should look at the way you're acting and how that might affect Russ. And then Barry just attack that person, right?
Yeah, attacks his wife too.
Right, and it was just this is what
the hell?
Right, this is not Oklahoman, right? But the Oklahoman employs these people, so it's a very, very bad look. I think about it sometimes, especially with a city like Salt Lake City having the All-Star game. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if Oklahoma City could have the All-Star game? And why couldn't they? And one of the things that I think would be really great is if we saw the media treat the Thunder in a way that really was appropriate, right? Instead of looking at them like they that one fucking thing with the Oklahoman ran about KD, which is Mr. Unreliable across the front page. Why is this antagonistic relationship there, right? And what else is it like?
We're not New York City.
Boom. It's like New York City.
Why do they think we're New York City? We're small town freaking Midwest. We're not fucking New York City. Let's not act like this is New York City. People in the media treat the Wizards players better than the Oklahoma City Thunder players get treated. The Wizards players get treated better than the
and it's
Thunder
all
players.
done under the name of impartiality. But how can you be so partial and claim to be impartial? How could you be so aggressive and so negative and at the same time say, I'm just doing my job? Your job is not to attack these people. And these are young men. They come into the league. Generally, we're drafting. We have them for a while. Some of the youngest players in the draft. So generally, they're teenagers or just turned 20.
Yeah.
And we're putting them through the ringer in a way where there's really just one major media outlet or 2 radio stations or 3 podcasts, right? And so they do see these narratives. They do echo out there. And one of the things that we've always complained about, and then we just decided to do something about it, was that such a lack of diverse media types has led to a really negative culture. And we felt like certain people had too much influence because that they were the only people that people could listen to. So we were like, well, we can either bitch about it or fucking go out there and say, it doesn't have to be this way, everybody. The only reason it's this way is because people have been incentivized to create this conflict, right? And if we can look at it and say, let's unwind it, because we know one thing for sure about history, that if you don't understand history, then it's bound to repeat itself. And we can say, do we want history repeating itself with a media relationship with the players? Now, if you talk to Barry Trammell, Barry will say, well, that's up to the organization about making the players more available. But we as fans can say, yes, but it's up to us about what we want to consume. And if players are being attacked by the media, we choose not to consume that. And you can say, oh, no, they love Giddey. Oh, they love SGA. But if you hear one player that they're throwing under the bus, I'm telling you right now, the players don't like that. They're in the locker room with these guys. They're their brothers. And that's ultimately what Andrew touched on the nerve of whenever he asked Bazley that question. It was, these are my brothers. These are my friends. These are my family. I am going to carry these relationships for the rest of my life. This is not a flippant thing, right? And that's where we're at. That's it,
if you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder and you look at how the media treats the players, the biggest thing that you can pull away from this entire fucking thing, the entire fucking thing is this. And it's the most important thing. All right, guys, listen. If the dick is too big to fit in, you don't fucking jam it in hoping everything's going to be okay. You pull out, slap some lube on it, and fucking try again. The media are jamming their cocks in without lube, and they're causing fucking issues. And nothing's going to change until they decide they want to change.
How else would there be such a massive UTI that's infected the media if people were doing the fucking right? It wouldn't be there, man. Like, it's not, look, if the media keeps giving these UTIs, and we got to look at it and say, like, more lube, take your time, less pounding, whatever it takes, dude.
Spit on it. I mean, whatever works, bro.
Take your time, baby. Don't be so aggressive.
Right? Aggression only hurts. Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying don't, go at it, but I'm just saying, you got to get warmed up before you go at it, bro. You can't just start pounding it before it's prepped, bro.
I mean, unless you're just using the thighs.
Which, I mean, that's fun when you're in high school, but we're adults.
Damn, bro. Listen, when push comes to shove. All right, guys. When push comes to shove. All right. You can talk about the Thunder in any which way you want. And you can talk about these fucking idiotic, horrible people that are in charge of the media in Oklahoma City. And you can look at them and you can say, well, they're smart people, or they're this or that. They're this, right? Okay. Yes, I get it. But why are they so horrible? It's because it's a life mentality. And it's something that Mark and I have talked about since day one of starting the show, is the life mentality that we live, the positive life, the happiness. Like, our houses and our lives are full of laughter and fun. We go on hikes, we go camping, we go on guide trips to go fishing, just Mark and I. We go up to the deep woods of Maine. We go up to Alaska to go down the Kenai in our canoes. We do all these crazy fucking insane things because we look at life and we look at it as a short amount of time to have as much fun and with the people that we want to have it with. And that's why we started this podcast, because we wanted to start our own podcast family of people that would listen and love the Thunder like Mark and I do. And that is as deep as that gets right there. There's no ambition of one day Mark and I would become a millionaire because of this show. There's none of that. Because this show, if we wanted to make money, we've already would have done it. We've already would have accepted the offers that we've had. But we turned that down because that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about giving the information.
We turned down DraftKings, bro. Because I don't want our listeners to lose money because we give them bad advice, dude. We're not going to do any gambling. Look, we're not looking for sponsorship.
Fuck that shit. This is about us. This is about you guys. This is about the Thunder.
I would think twice before I said all the funny things that we got laughing about if we had to think about some corporate responsibility with it. So,
but even like with other companies like writing us about like our numbers and different things like that, we're not interested. You know, like we don't mind helping out a friend if they own a company that's out there that listens to our show that says, hey, I could use some help. You know, we don't mind throwing your name out there if you're in the Oklahoma City area or whatever.
Speaking of, man, right?
But that's
if you ever need a house in Oklahoma City, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let us know. We got some contacts, man.
Maven guys.
Real estate.
Maven.
There you go.
Look them up.
Right.
Maven.
Right. Good people.
Good stuff in Oklahoma there. Mark, Josh Malone, good guys. But, getting back to the whole idea of where this Thunder team and everything is going and why it's so important is because when Mark and I saw this team 2 years ago and where Sam Presti was trying to go with this team, and we recognized that nobody in the media was bringing anything up about it. The re-education had been dropped. The education of what happened and where it's going had been lost. And that's when Mark and I were like, we've got to do something about this because there's this whole new wave of people that are coming to listen to the Thunder podcast. And it's crazy because, we got a bad review on our
you got it.
Podcast.
Video podcast.
The video podcast on Apple.
Yeah.
And they wrote, listen to Down to Dunk instead. That's all the podcast. That's all it said. IWPT or whatever. Listen, guys. It was so ridiculous. Like, it wasn't original. It wasn't anything like these guys suck.
I didn't even want to mention because it's like, come on, say something.
It's such a dumb.
Tell us we're
response.
Dickheads or something.
Yeah, like I get it. Like, you might not like this podcast because it might not be your taste, and we might say fuck a lot and bring up sexual innuendos and talk about lubing shit up and stuff like that. But guess what?
It's important. Play with the clip.
It is so important to play with the clip, first of all. And the second of all, it's important to be part of a group. And when Mark and I are acting like this is what Mark and I act like in person. This is what we act like around our friends. So why would we change who we are and acting who we are for you guys? Because this is about you.
Man, you brought it up. So I just want to peace out on the note. I made a video of our Alaska trip. It's pretty crazy trip. And
fun shit.
I'll post that here at the end. One of my favorite songs. The crazy thing, none of that's captured in the trip, but at the conclusion of the trip was I was just outside Erie, Pennsylvania, and I had a fucking car wreck, man. Got ejected from my car going about 70 miles an hour as it rolled over. Pretty insane. But when you watch this Alaska video, I made that while I was recovering. And we started this podcast while I was recovering. The 1 year anniversary of the wreck, I was actually back in Erie and we were running this podcast. This is it's become something of a crazy amount of recovery. I used to go out, do a lot of stuff. Pain isn't as bad as it used to be or anything, but my point is in the end, I really don't have many things I go out and do anymore. I think a lot of people ended up that way through COVID, but kind of those things being stacked on top of them. And then at the same time, right, I feel like we've added hundreds of new friends. And that's something I never imagined happening, that we could do so much just talking with each other, sharing a passion for our favorite team with so many people. And it's really changed my life. It's enhanced my life in ways that I could never have anticipated, at the time when we recorded this video that was basically just before the podcast started. But we have a couple of other friends in there. We got Adam Connell, shout out, Meredith Wolfley, and her dog, who is pretty awesome, Arrow, the Red Irish setter. So I'm going to let Dave, you say goodbye. Anything else you want to add, and then I'll play this video.
Yeah, guys, like don't have to fucking follow us. Don't have to subscribe. You don't have to do anything like that. But we would love to hear from you, where you're from, what part of the world you're listening from, anything like that. I mean, it doesn't matter. We will do whatever it takes to stay in contact with you guys, as long as you guys keep on commenting. We just love to talk about Thunder, and that's what we do. So we appreciate you guys listening, and we will be back on Sunday or Monday. We're not too sure when. We'll let you guys know for sure.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Fuck yeah. Enjoy the video. Peace out.
We always knew it'd be lovers when the summer ends. Couldn't stand to be apart from one another. On the other hand, we weren't fit to play. The kings and queens would fall. So now I'm sleeping with the lights on looking over my shoulder and double bolting the door. And the problem is, as if it needs to be told, that nothing gets better and the same things repeat on and on. We get old. Yeah, this changes my mind, but I'm stuck in time. I'm getting down, now. And the city's too cold, the city's too hot. Life doesn't give a fuck about what you want. It's about take a ride. Let's get hot, but just a little while. And your daddy is pretty and your mama's rich. Let's get the fuck out of the city and get our fix. I'll be out in the night. Let's get high, but just a little while. Can't find a way to make it seem okay, but on the other hand, it's probably better made, and that just seems to be right. So I'll jump in from the deep end and just leave it up to reason. I'll be kept by the light. And the city's too cold, the city's too hot. Life doesn't give a fuck about what you want. It's about